Well, hello, everyone. I'm so excited that you're all here. Welcome. We're the U.S. Women in Coffee Association, a nonprofit focused on supporting women coffee professionals. We're the official U.S. chapter to the International Women's Coffee Alliance, a global association with a mission to empower, advance, and connect women in coffee. Just a quick reminder, we are recording this event, so please mute yourself, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end of the panel, which will be addressed in the chat function. And we will try to get to as many questions as possible at the end. So today, our topic will be on sustainability storytelling. It's going to be a discussion that explores philosophies and contributions to sustainable business practices by women in the coffee industry. Panelists will share how they authentically developed or successfully implemented change at their organizations, while at the same time keeping sustainability at the forefront. They'll also discuss pivotal roles women in leadership have in sustainability strategies, challenges, and responsibilities. The focus of this discussion will be on real-world solutions that will help everyone to be more successful while driving change to help the planet with a commitment to purpose-driven, green, and socially responsible efforts. This is a panel discussion for everyone in the coffee industry, or out of the coffee industry, frankly, who cares and wants to understand more about sustainability in coffee. So first, let's start off by introducing the participants for today's discussion. My name is Ashley Tindall. I'm the founder of Soul Bean Coffee Roasters in Fort Collins, Colorado, and member of the board of directors for U.S. Women in Coffee. And I will be your moderator for today's event. I'm so excited now to introduce our panelists. We have such a great turnout for this as well, and I'm very, very excited for you to meet them. They're an amazing group of individuals in our industry and represent important different stakeholders roles. We've got a grower, a roaster, an importer, and an exporter. Svetlana Santian is the founder of Because We Care 365, and her family owns El Cincuenta Farm in Peru. Candace Madison is founder and CEO of Kandaki Boutique Coffees and is a published author. Emily McIntyre is CEO and founder of Catalyst Trade, an Ethiopian importing company focused on sustainability. And you may recognize her from moderating our last event. And Larissa Cerrone is a well-established sustainability expert at the Newman Group. So without further ado, let's get started with our first question. Emily, why don't you kick us off? Can you walk us through your individual history of determining a path of sustainability? How and when did sustainability initially become a focus for your organization? And what were some of the first steps you took?
With pleasure. Hello, everyone. So happy to be here. So my career in coffee has been mostly focused on storytelling. And of course, because of the angle that I approached the industry itself, sustainability has been an ongoing concern, and it has also changed. My understanding of the concept of sustainability has changed. I'm still a little uncomfortable with it simply because it's so easy to use the word sustainability and really mean anything. So in regards to Catalyst Trade, sustainability is actually one of our 3 core values we founded the company with: excellence, innovation, and sustainability. And like most core values, those words are basically cliches, and we don't mean for them to be. So we have a phrase that we use for each of them that we can use as a sort of metric for decision-making and action. And even when any of our team members need to make a quick call on something, they can refer to these. And so for sustainability, our action phrase is long-term thinking. We want to be an organization that has a positive impact on the people who work within it. So those would be one of our 3 key stakeholder groups that we focus on the a positive effect in the lives of the producer partners that we work with, that we're privileged to work with, another key stakeholder for us. And then lastly, also for our roaster partners, our other key stakeholder we consider. So we try to approach all the decisions, all the actions at our company with asking these questions. Not just, will we be here in 10 years, but will we be here together? Will we be here together and better off? And that's also from an ethical standpoint, from an ecological standpoint, of course, the financial sustainability piece, and then community development and the ripple effect on all of our lives. So I would say that it's a key focus for us, and constantly we're striving to put better words to it and explore this concept of sustainability.
Thanks, Emily. And Svetlana, I would really like you to weigh in on this, given that the main focus of your NGO, Because We Care 365, centers around preservation and sustainability. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, definitely. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm very happy and honored to be here with you guys. Yeah, actually, Because We Care was born with the mission of preserving habitat for bees. This is the heart of our organization, but we understand conservation and preservation as something that has to be a circle of mutual support between its participants, where there are no main or secondary actors, where everyone and every action towards conservation goals count. So in this understanding, we see vital to have allies in our task of environmental conservation and protection of bees. So we wanted to focus on the economic and social development of the families participating in our project that have the task of forming an entrepreneurial community. So we thought we cannot introduce the idea of conservation and care of bees when families are concerned about living day by day. So we didn't want to assign them one more task without providing solution at least to some of the difficulties in their lives as coffee farmers. We wanted to pick the fact that their farming practice are in tune with the nature, are healthy for the environment, and it's also diverse. This is how we formed this group of farming coffee farmers that work in harmony with, again, a healthy environment, where we have started an initiative to create long-term sustainable coffee quality by building direct relationship with farmers, combining agriculture with forestry and other sustainable ways of farming. So I come from one of these families, and I know the reality of coffee farming here, which has never been very promising. So our allies in environmental conservation are precisely these farmers. So we're trying to put together action which pushes these people to keep this forms of these practices of farming, and also kick them into a new ways of business. So we introduce them into a specialty coffee business where they can have access to different market that pay better. And so we already had them exporting their coffee kind of directly last year to the UK with our partner, Conscious with Coffee, who is now selling their coffee with their names on the packages, and also linking the work that the farmers do here with the consumers. So now that they can have these farmers feel more encouraged to actually work in preserving and conserving and the forestry and all of this. So again, it's a circle of mutual collaboration between farmers and what we're doing because we care.
Awesome. Svetlana, thank you so much. That's so exciting. And also, Candace, I actually want everyone to address this first question, but Candace, I know you're launching Kendaki Boutique Coffees this year as a new roastery. So I think you're in a great position to speak to the process of making those decisions as your company is being formed, you know, the implications or whether you can or you can't do it. So I would love to hear your perspective on that.
I think that that what Emily was talking about is completely right. Sustainability isn't one thing. We try and compartmentalize it as well, which I think is, for me, in the way that I view things, is very holistic. So it seems very wrong. If your company is not sustainable in one way, how can it call itself sustainable? So I've been doing a lot of thinking about these things, and I've also been doing a lot of, I think, new business owners do, which is the realization of what it means to run a business, and what you need to feed that business can sometimes feel at odds with how you feel about being an ethical person. And I realized I was going to have to compromise. So you run out to get the compostable bags, because that's the first thing you always think about as a coffee roaster. I have to have compostable bags. You know, it's an absolute necessity. And then looking into it further, you read, oh, well, that's part of it is compostable, but that other inner lining it's not compostable, and that part needs to be taken out of that part and then recycled this way and recycled that way. And I'm expecting consumers to do this, of course, because if I've given them a compostable bag, of course they should know exactly how to do it, or I should give them a list of it. That's not going to work. If I give you a list of instructions of how to dispose of your bag in a way that seems more sustainable, and you don't take the time to do that, I'm not creating a sustainable business. The economics of the business, of course, have to be sustainable, but the socioeconomics of the people that I will employ needs to be considered too. And that needs to be baked in early on, because if I'm not taking the time to consider the economic factors of all the different types of sustainability that I want to implement into my business, I don't have a sustainable business again. So for me, what I realized I had to do was to compromise or do the best that I could where I could, and not compromise where I didn't want to. The first thing I will never compromise on is economic and social sustainability, including race equality. I won't employ people without them being able to get healthcare. I'm not doing these things. So you know what I can do? I can employ myself and not pay myself, and I can pay myself for healthcare and food, and that's it. So that's what I'm doing right at the beginning, taking advantage of co-roasting spaces. I have the investment for building a roastery. That's not sustainable at this point. That would put me into debt. That would mean I couldn't employ them the way that I want to employ. And so there are a lot of considerations that I have been making along the way, knowing that when I grow, I can fold in what I've already been thinking of, what I've already been concerned with, and how I want my business to be. I'm a Q instructor, and one of the first things I noticed coming into coffee was the amount of waste. Waste on the processing side is something that I can't really speak to because I'm not an expert. I haven't got my Q professional license yet. And so I won't speak to that because it seems, I know a lot of people who speak to things in coffee that they maybe shouldn't do, and I won't speak to that. But I will speak to the fact that the waste in roasting, the waste in beans all over the floor, the fact that my first bot in coffee made me pick up by hand every single green bean that was on the floor and explain to me the story of how they got there. And therefore, the work that was put into every single green bean, and I could not waste them. But then looking at the waste of, if I'm scoring a coffee and I'm scoring at a certain level, does that mean that the other coffee just goes in the bin, isn't used, isn't kind of thought of? So I'm not just thinking about my company, I'm thinking of ways in the supply chain that I, as a quality expert, can discuss these things with different farmers, producers, importers, and figure out how we as an industry can become more sustainable, not by locking out commodity coffee, but by introducing concepts that may help us to kind of sell and drink better coffee in a way that doesn't just kind of like knock half the business off the table because we've decided it isn't good enough quality wise. That's kind of a long, short, all the way around answer, but yeah.
No, that was awesome. That was awesome. And I completely agree. Our company is doing research and development regarding utilizing excess waste and making products from those. So I grew up in a family of 12. Waste was like not a thing. You did not eat your food. You were not going to get any more food. So I totally agree with you there. Larissa, I would like to ask you the same question. You're now working in the sustainability unit for the Newman Group. What was your individual history of choosing a path of sustainability?
Hi, everyone. Greetings from Hamburg, and thank you for the invitation. Well, I started 6 years ago in Exportadora de Café California, a Mexican company of Neumann Coffee Group, in project development. The position was not related to farm projects, but focused on different departments of the company. I remember that by that time, we used to provide fertilizer support for some of our suppliers, but we were not already like there as a business model. So after crop 2016, I know there are some people from Honduras, Guatemala, so basically they can be related. In Mexico happened, so the coffee rust devastated around 60% of the total national production in Mexico. So, and since 90% of farmers in Mexico are smallholders, meaning that the average size of land is around 2 hectares per farmer, and most of the plantations are around 50 years old. They are really, really old. This created a really severe impact for the livelihoods of coffee farming communities. So as a company, we decided at that time to turn our side to the ground and literally let farmers, they were not alone in this battle. So to support coffee farmers in this dramatic drop in production, we created custom service packages to ensure that coffee farmers could be financially viable business that can provide income security to families. We focus on technical assistance, provision of agri-inputs, seedlings, access to markets, infrastructure, certifications, good agricultural practices. And very important, all this together was put our focus on providing true short and long-term financing so that farmers, especially the young generation that is getting there, could invest in their own future and the future of their children. This is how Por Más Café program was started in Mexico. And now, this program is part of the NKG Bloom initiative of Neumann Coffee Group across the world. So this is in a nutshell.
No, it's great. I know it's kind of a question that someone could easily go on and on about, but I want to actually dig our teeth into the next part of this, which is what this is about, is sustainability storytelling. By nature, stories, they give us a connection to our past, an inspiring vision for our future, a tangible human experience to share, and a forum for discussing solutions to tough problems. They serve as the mechanism or the catalyst that we use to convey our passion and commitment to sustainability. Emily, can you speak to this? How does sustainability storytelling improve the livelihoods of people in the supply chain? And how does it impact the fight for environmental, social, and economic sustainability?
I have to quote Candace from yesterday. She said something that was really amazing, which is that sustainability is our future, right? That's the future. And storytelling is how we get there. And I was so struck by that. That was such an articulate way to say what I feel I've spent my entire professional career kind of trying to learn and express. So storytelling is how we as humans relate to each other. Really, most of the people that I've had the privilege of working with, it's our shared story, whether it's an afternoon where we connected over this sacrament of washed Ethiopian coffee, or maybe we shared beer, or we have a touch point. I was a lit major, you're a lit major. Cool, we like each other. It could be that superficial, but they're not superficial because we need these stories to show us who other people are and whether we want to be like them or have them in our lives. And storytelling is also aspirational, and it shapes the way that we think of things. And so years in, I began in coffee in 2008, have been focused on this concept the entire time of my career. And I feel more passionate about this concept than I ever have, because if we're going to have a future together, we have to be telling the right stories. And I don't think we're telling mostly the right stories in our industry. We are perpetuating concepts that are at the least interpretation outdated, but in many interpretations unethical, exploitative, neo or actually colonialist, and we're stuck in this narrative because it's what we've created. Even I think the specialty coffee industry in which most of us are engaged is an attempt to reorient ourselves, but we're looking at it wrong usually too. And stories help us break ourselves down. We have to be able and willing to embrace that we are not everything, and what we know is not everything. And so, as somebody who's privileged to work in Ethiopia a lot, I think one of the things I value the most as an individual and as a professional is that every time I interact with my Ethiopian brothers and sisters, I'm challenged in new ways in my perspectives. My inherent privilege is challenged, and the way that I tell the stories is shaped as well. So that's what I have to say on a sort of high level about sustainability storytelling. What stories we tell really impact the future of our industry. And we do need to be examining these with a hard lens. We need to have some grace, knowing that all of us are probably doing our best, but there can be some doubt there at times, and that so much of our narratives can be used for simply marketing purposes without any understanding or an attempt to understand the way they impact people and the trickle-down effect that these stories have and the ripple effect. And that it's important for me as a white coffee professional who is in a buying position and who brokers coffee to a lot of buyers. It's important for me to constantly examine the way that I'm doing it and ask myself questions if I'm doing it right, or if I could improve. Can I be more humble? Can I tell better stories? Can I examine the impact of what I'm doing on this person, this stakeholder, that stakeholder? So I think these questions have to be asked. And we got to ride this all out together and create a new future for coffee through the storytelling actions we take as companies and individuals.
Absolutely, Emily. Thank you so much. And you quoted Candace, so I feel a little bit like we need to have Candace weigh in on this.
Sure, I feel I've been quoted twice this week back to myself, and I feel very humbled and also like worried that I'm not saying the right thing and making sure I go through and say the right thing. But it is true. That's how I do feel. I feel that about storytelling because I've been a fiction book reader since I was 3. I started reading 3 or 4 years old. My parents used to hide books because I used to like just take entire shelves of the bookshelf like to my room. And I used to get very angry when people held literature, not literature, fact-based or non-fiction books above fiction books as though that were more important. Facts are very important, but stories is how we have, how basically humanity has survived. Humanity has survived on oral cultures and oral storytelling that you still find in producing countries. Exactly what Emily said, we relate to each other by the stories that we tell one another, and we don't call it storytelling. It's a part of life. It's a part of living and breathing. We get the, and again, Emily is right, we get the story wrong all of the time. The story of specialty coffee was supposed to be better for the supply chain, and it's a lie. It's the exact same story as the traditional model. We are making a lot more money on this side of the supply chain than people who are actually doing the majority of the work, producing and processing what we sell, what we roast, what we imbibe. That will never sit okay with me. That's one of the reasons why I'm the vice president of the Coffee Coalition for Racial Equity. Because until we tell the correct stories, our industry will always look like that. And I don't just mean the correct stories like don't take pictures of non-consensual pictures of little black kids surrounding you smiling because it's vomitous to most of us, and really, really kind of like old school now. And it's seen to be old school. But you know what's also old school? Me seeing every single picture of a producer talking to a white man. Emily, are you a white man? I don't think so.
Hell no.
And it goes on how we talk about, you know, you wash the coffee and you have to do this because, you know, fermentation tanks, blah, blah, blah. Awesome. What's the rest of that story? Where does the water go to? Where does the water come from? Who's not getting water in their village because it's being redirected to a producer's farm? Things like this. So the work that Svetlana is doing, I am super interested in, and I will be contacting her later. In fact, everybody in this panel, be aware that you're now my new best friend, and I will be because you're all brilliant, and I would like to talk more about this. But until we can grapple with not just our industry, but like if you want to, we're bringing it to our industry, but not just, you know, race, but greenwashing that I see done all the time by companies. Unless we're unraveling these stories as they're happening, we're not doing the best work that we can for our industry. If we're letting things pass, and if we're letting things that we know are incorrect just go by, then we're not actually doing the best that we can. Am I ethical if I am allowing or knowing somebody doing some I was going to swear, sorry, some nonsense over there, and I'm not challenging their story. I'm not challenging their interaction with specialty coffee. And the person I have to challenge the most resides in my mirror. And I need to challenge that person every single day to do what is right. And I need to create that narrative for myself. So before I take my nonsense out on the road and start pontificating to other people, I need to know what my story is. And that's what I've spent. I mean, everyone's like, oh, have you started your business? Have you started roasting? Blah, blah. Oh my God, what's happening? I want to buy your beans. Yes, I have coffee. It's sitting in the warehouse. No, the roasting part of my business is the least of my worries. It's the last thing I have to get right. I know how to roast. I've done it since like I was a child. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, what I need to get right is the story of my company, the story of coffee, and how I then insert myself into this new narrative that we all need to build together. That's it.
Thank you so much. I got goosebumps, actually. And that actually is a great segue to one of the other things that comes to mind, you know, given you were talking about, you know, telling the correct stories. So what examples come to your mind of successful sustainability storytelling? Larissa, I would like to hear from you first, and then Svetlana, if you could weigh in on that.
Okay, one of the most impressive, or maybe the most impressive successful sustainability storytelling from my perspective is the effort allocated in Los Altos region of Chiapas, Mexico. Perhaps people know about it, but it's a region of indigenous coffee farmers. They are Setzales and Tzotziles, and where the coffee rust hit even harder coffee plantations that had no nutrition, no renovation, and that they were very, very old. Farmers, I remember they used to say that they didn't want to renovate their coffee farms because they were planted by their grandparents. So basically they see it like a heritage. It's mind-blowing, but I totally understood the emotional meaning, but those plants were not productive anymore. So they were kind of like with the typical bean in the whole branch, one bean here and one bean there. So the average production at that time was around 4 quintals per hectare when we started working with them. And after that, with the effort allocated after 6 years of working, being there with them, like very, very often, the farms started producing from 40, 45, even 50 quintals per hectare. And I'm talking about the smallholders, not the states. So besides the quality got really, really exceptional, a strictly high-grown coffee with sugar cane notes and sweet tangerine notes, like just for Candice to taste a little bit of the cup. Yeah, basically the successful storytelling comes in the results that can be seen in the communities. Little villages came alive. Farmers are happier than before. In general, when you feel the joyfulness of a coffee farming community is when you realize that all your effort is worth it. And I also agree with the chat that is saying that we shouldn't be romanticizing all these, let's say, stories, the storytelling. Sustainability per se, from my perspective, should be tangible and becomes tangible when there is a constant production of coffee, not only in 1 or 2 crops, when there is consistency through several years in the income of coffee farmers, not only in one year of good market condition like the one we have. It would be great if we could have it like for more years. But yeah, I mean, now I think more than ever it's important to continue with this space and show out there is successful sustainability stories. So yeah.
No, absolutely. It should absolutely contain those truths. Oh, Candice, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I'm going to jump in, and I've worked with women's groups from Chiapas.
What?
You're cutting out a little bit, Candice.
I think we
lost Svetlana. We'll come back to you, Candice, once you unfreeze. But Svetlana, would you like to weigh in on this?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I've been hearing all of you, and I was thinking, and when we started Because We Care, we were thinking in bees because I have a big connection with bees. but also I was thinking how coffee is very social, same as like bees, right? But we see bees as the total beehive. We never think in the tiny little honey that each bee makes, like for the whole beehive, right? We never think in that. It's this little thing, and it happens in everything that we do in life. Like we don't pay much attention. We don't care of these little things, and when we go in because we care, we're more about what are the things we care of in life, right? And when it comes to storytelling, actually I don't have much experience in this yet, but when we started with working with the coffee farmers into the specialty coffee, some of the people outside of the organization were asking me, well, what are your dreams? In the group of farmers we have, most of them are women, we have some men too, but this question, which is simple for many of us to answer, right? If we ask you, what are your dreams? You're probably going to come out with a lot of things that you dream of. For this group, for this woman, there's no answer. It's like you ask this and there's no answer. It's just silence, right? These people don't live, they're accustomed to live day by day. The dreaming of something different or of something in the future, it's hard to tell. And so when we started the process of exporting their coffee to the UK, and thankfully I'm working with this company, Conscious with Coffee, and we decided to put a face to this coffee, to put a name on the packages of the coffee the Conscious with Coffee is selling now. And this little thing, when I show it to the farmers here, we had this meeting, and you could see this huge smile on their face, like this thing of they couldn't believe that their coffee, it's in another country with their names. And so the thing is also creating dreams for these people, that they can dream of something that comes from their work, that they can be rewarded. And by that, we also dream at because we care, that we can build a coffee or consumers community that identifies with our values, generating empathy with producers and business that are aligned and focused on sustainability and environmental preservation, as well as small farmers' economic development. I know it can sound romantic, but I think if we face a feeling, a name, and an idea to the consumer of what is important for the farmers, for the people we're working with, then we can create this community. And again, coffee is this social thing, right? We go and say always, well, let's get a cup of coffee when we meet with friends, when we meet with family, and it unifies this things that we care about. And this is what we want to do with these farmers, that they can actually dream of new things, that they can actually think of what is next after processing the coffee, after harvesting the coffee, what else, and that the people can see them, right? And so this is what, for me, it's this storytelling and the group of people I'm working with.
Thank you so much, Svetlana. I also wanted Emily to weigh on this because you specialize, as you mentioned, through your career in storytelling. Can you share your thoughts on this?
Can you remind me what the precise question was? I'm so caught up in everyone's
No,
answers.
absolutely. I know it's hard to not get completely engrossed. What examples come to your mind of successful sustainability storytelling?
Oh boy. Well, I can't remember who it was who talked about unraveling the narratives as we're telling them, but I have to say that I've been so proud of so many stories I've told over the years, and some of them I'm still really proud of, and others I'm like, wow, I did my best. I believe that I was able to help. Perhaps it could have been done differently. And I think too that we tend to underestimate the cost associated with producing storytelling that's quality. So, if we're going to do more than just gather content in a short visit, then we're talking a lot of money devoted to storytelling. And for companies that are small and trying to do a good job with their sustainability storytelling, at times it's out of reach, and at other times it's very difficult. So in the various projects I've been a part of, whether it was working with the Alliance for Coffee Excellence to coordinate the marketing materials that were conveyed to the buyers of coffees and trying to coordinate those stories, or boots on the ground, gathering photos and storytelling in my time living in Ethiopia and working with Ethiopian partners, many other stories. I think that a unifying observation I have is that we could always do better, but effort does matter, and genuine human connection shows. And that vulnerability of being willing to sit in the same space with someone and take the time to ask them questions with the understanding often that we're in a manufactured environment. Maybe they drove in from their farm and you're sitting together over lunch and you're hoping to do a good job with their coffee. That kind of vulnerability, which it will create better types of storytelling, where we don't just say, do you have any kids? But we do ask, are your kids working with you in coffee? What are they hoping to do with you next year? So with all of that, I think one of my favorite stories I have had the privilege of telling is just my little family's story in coffee over the years. We've been really grassroots, like basically paying to play, doing a lot of pro bono work over the years and trying to build something that feels sustainable to everybody involved, very much from the independent coffee side. And so like this picture behind me is my daughter when she was 4, and a dear friend of ours, Asmata, who was a lab assistant where we worked this year when we lived there. My daughter had her 5th birthday there. That was a dress that Asmata had given Era for her birthday. And telling those stories was very successful, really helped Catalyst get going because they were real, authentic stories. I wrote a whole series for Fresh Cup talking about how I was out of my element and sharing everything from food that I was experiencing from my personal perspective to interviews I was doing, profiles of the different producers I was working with that wanted to be profiled. So that stands out to me as a success, but I probably would do it differently now, hopefully more involved.
Thank you, Emily. And Candace, you actually touched on this a little bit earlier, but it sort of brings me to my next question around sustainability storytelling. What are the ethical concerns around storytelling focused on origin sustainability work, do you think?
Sorry, I'm trying to press the button and I was pressing the wrong button and I'm not very bright. There are so many. I mean, the first huge one that's easiest to see, and I actually think I put something in the chat about this, but who's telling the story? Because that's pretty important. If we are telling other people's stories, then that's wrong. So I was working for an importer. I won't name them, not because of any reasons, just what I'm about to say is like less salubrious. And a colleague of mine was used to writing a missive that we put out about roasting and the quality, and we did a bunch of metrics, and we do this for every coffee. And at the beginning of was a paragraph about the producer or the farmer or whatever. And being an importing company, we usually know the people that we are featuring. And I was standing behind my colleague one day, and I said, "Oh, you're doing another producer profile?" And he said, yeah. I really love talking to this guy. It was such a great conversation. No, actually, I believe it was a woman, because that kind of got my back up a little bit. I don't identify as a woman, but I grew up a little girl, and I very much root for that team. And I said, "She speaks English." And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, then why the hell are you writing this?" I was like, seriously, why are you writing about somebody else's coffee? If she speaks English and you've interviewed her and therefore she has the information that you need for your, and it had never occurred to him before. In fact, it hadn't occurred to the entire country that maybe they hand the microphone over to the person who should be telling the story. And from there forward, I think all the producers were either interviewed and therefore their words were able to be on the page, or they wrote what was needed about the coffee. But that's a really huge thing for me. There's a lot of people, and social media has put this in sharp relief. There are a lot of people who think they know a lot of things, and that's great. I think I know a hell of a lot more than I actually know. But what I can't do is put words into someone's mouth or take words out of someone's mouth. I'm giving you my perspective. That means that the entire story of coffee is colored by white people, or brown people in Western countries, in consuming countries like me. I don't have any right to put the words into this producer's mouth. And so for me, coffee, we need to actually get to the point where we talk about coffee as truly collaborative, because right now we are gatekeeping. Right now we are standing as though we know better, as the benevolent kind of, giver, and then, for want of a better phrase, the noble savage beneath. It's nonsense. If we're not drawing everybody in to talk about these subjects, because I can tell you, a person sorting coffee in Ethiopian raised African bed knows a hell of a lot more about green coffee than I think I know, and I've studied it for years. So put the focus on that person, speak to that person, and then all the injustices or all the whatevers or all the kind of like little bits that we try to sweep under the table and hide. Have you ever used, by the way, Emily, I can ask you this, but I don't know if anybody else has ever used a toilet in a farm or processing, kind of like the kind of processing sorting area of a farm. Have you ever used it there? Because I have. And
I'm smiling at one of my employees who was in Ethiopia with me in August, and we were sharing a real strong sensory memory there.
Yeah. I want to run around giving all those women sanitary equipment. I want to build toilets. I understand the whole building of schools and stuff, but we're taking dignity away from people and acting as though we're giving it to them. I would rather spend my money, my profits building toilets for people than, producing pretty pictures and great marketing material. Because then I have helped elevate their story, and they have helped me understand what is actually happening in coffee producing countries and areas and things like that. And then I have a story to tell that's real. And then they have a story to tell that's real. And I think that's just my thing. I think we need to stop putting words in people's mouths or taking them out of people's mouths. And I think we need to understand that storytelling isn't from one perspective. If we're not all telling this story of coffee, then we're not really telling the story of coffee at all.
Absolutely. And I am loving all the questions that are coming into the chat. It's just, I think I'm trying to plan our time here, but I'd really like to talk about this just a little bit more, because I think the ethical implications are so important. So I would really like it if Svetlana, if you could weigh in on this.
Yeah, sure. Well, when it comes to how ethical we can be about storytelling, about what work we do with our farmers, I think our key is to be the most transparent we can. Each of our farmers know and have been informed, not just informed, but actually participate in what are the actions that we're taking with what they're doing, and how we are aiming to sell their coffees, or everything that we do. They are informed. Again, we're very transparent. We're not trying in any ways to exclude them or to give any kind of preference to any one of them. We allow them, and actually it's our one of our goals, that they can speak for themselves. We try that in each meeting that I have with them, that they can participate at, and then we can take every of their opinion on. It's hard. It's I won't say it's easy, because this is the first time actually that they are working with an organization like ours. They are used to work with the cooperative, which just take the coffee and then pay them, and then they forget about them until the next season. What we're doing is a whole year work in which we're involved in everything that they do, and we take also their opinions and their thoughts on what could help them to improve in their farming, in becoming better coffee farmers, and in everything. So again, it's about being work very transparently with them, and not lying them or answer all of their questions the most easy way possible that they can understand what is going on in everything that we're doing.
Thank you, Svetlana. And Emily, I would love your perspective on this, given your company's deep experience with this.
I'm curious. I'm following a lot of the questions that people are, and statements that people are making. And I find myself, as I often am, sort of overtaken by the complexity of the issue. It's so easy for us to talk about areas of the industry that we don't actively invest in, and to be condemnatory of how it's being done. So, first of all, yes, we should be hiring origin country individuals to do the storytelling for our organizations. It's so funny because as a storyteller, I've done all that work for my company and for many clients and for many producer groups who wanted to find new markets. And I've acted as that consultant or agent or whatever. But I'm actually leaving here in about a week to go to Ethiopia and activate a whole team of Ethiopian storytellers to start doing that for Catalyst. At least creating a lot of interviews and photography and videography that I'm not doing for the first time. It's so easy for people who don't understand how hard we've worked to build what we've done to look on and say, well, Emily, you're a white person. Why are you telling these stories? And the simple answer is that in the context with the people that we've been working with, if I weren't telling the stories, nobody would be. It's just not happening. And the stories have to be told in order to create a market for these particular coffee producers to have financial sustainability. And so it's a luxury now for me to be like, this is the year we hire other people who are qualified to do this work. And I'm so excited about it. So I guess, wow, there's so much here. I entirely agree with what Candace said about people should be telling their own stories. And I also just want to highlight how difficult that is, often impossible for those stories to be told. And so, yeah, I'm there. I'm here. Even figuring out like what pictures are okay to post, what pictures are okay to take. We talk so much about this in the industry that it now feels like a cliche, but we haven't actually done anything about it. Like, is it ethical to take pictures of other people and use them to promote their products when it's quite likely they don't really understand the implications of that happening? And I'm here in that ethical morass where I question it. And yet I also am trying to create a working business that requires this kind of storytelling to take place. And if I don't come back as a buyer next year, these partners will not have a buyer, or they'll have to have someone who pays less or is less caring about them. So simply here to flag that this ethical thing is not a binary thing. It's not a yes or a no, a good or a bad. It is a, how can we do better? And I am so glad that we're having these conversations. I'm so glad to hear, Candace, that your story ended with, and we all changed the way we did things. That's so incredible. Wow, you have amazing coworkers and an amazing past employer.
It's a mark of two things. One, I don't really hear the word no. People say it a lot, but I don't hear it. And two, I think we were in a really privileged position. You're exactly right in what you say, that there is not always going to be somebody available to tell that story, but the fact that you're nurturing those relationships and are hiring those people. And that's kind of like the progression that to me is a legitimate progression. And in the case of this importer, we had access to these people. These were relationship, producers. These were people that we knew these were people that we knew spoke English. So to me, the logical thing would be, we'll let them tell their story. If it had been some random person who didn't speak English, we're putting a lot of pressure on to, and they felt very uncomfortable, and that's also not helpful. So you're right, there's different ways in which you need to be helpful, and whether or not it's perfect, people are like, well, we need this. It doesn't have to be. I'm not referencing anyone here. It doesn't have to be perfect. Perfect is the enemy of good.
Good point.
You have to keep trying to be better. That's all anyone's asking of anyone. I mean, perfection does not exist, but trying does. And if you are trying with the best of intentions, that's all you can do. And I'll wave my flag and clap my hands for you, so, but I hear you.
Yeah, and I think to kind of add on to what you're saying, which is, and I appreciate that we can all approach this with personal perspective and nuance that comes from our unique dialogues. That's why we're here, right? We've got different people representing different parts of the supply chain. We got to keep questioning our definitions too. So I think that this year I have the privilege, as my company has had success, I now have a preliminary budget that I can use to make decisions where I am not wearing every single hat in the company. For so many years, it was very hand to mouth. We made those choices, kind of what Candace had shared earlier, to basically do all the work ourselves. So we get to kind of ask these questions in a different way as the company grows. And I think that it's important to reflect on those things on a regular basis and just keep moving in the right direction. Keep having progress and ask for and give as much grace as we can in all directions. That's why we're here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Candace, you brought to mind, I think all we can do is work on progress, not perfection. And I love that. And talking about, making sure that the people who are actually growing the coffee get to talk about their coffee and the opportunities that the sustainability opportunities that they have or might not have in their area of the world. I would like to ask Svetlana, if you could start us off on this. What do you think are the sustainability opportunities in your particular area, given that you are a third generation coffee grower? And how do you think those sustainability opportunities can impact you and your partners' lives from an economic standpoint, social standpoint, and environmental standpoint?
Well, I have, where our farm is. Actually, it's very hard to actually get to coffee farms here. You wouldn't believe where these people farm coffee. And so like farming community in this region, it's I will say it's set back decades. And these people has faced many devastating floods, and people have seen their homes being washed away and losing their families. Every couple of years, this happen over and over. And the recent pandemic, and even with all of this, the resilience and determination of people here is always shown through. It's inspirational, right? And this is what it pushed me, and it helped me to create Because We Care, because this is one of the things that I care about. So we wanted to use this resilience of people as a tool to lead a sustainable project that can open opportunities for farmers. So our Be Café Solidario is one of them. This is our coffee program. And with this project, farmers have access to education, So we can open discussions with them. They can have access to somebody who can go to their farms and teach them better ways of farming, sustainably, in a sustainable way, and better ways of processing their coffee to have more opportunities in the market. So we are trying to introduce new economical opportunities by taking the diverse farming they have. They don't farm only coffee. So the idea is also that, well, this is something they like. This is coffee farming, something they like, they enjoy, they know how to do, and they love, and they feel comfortable with. It doesn't bring them a source of better living, but they feel comfortable with farming coffee. And what we try is that they can this year involve them in other economic opportunities, like we're going to bring bees. They are committed to work with protecting our bees. We are building a bigger tree nursery where young people is going to be working in, and then they can get a salary for these, and then the families that are participating in our coffee project are in charge of doing the reforestation and afforestation. And so what we try is to diversify everything, like the activities that they do, by taking care of the environment, by taking care of the reforestation. This means that they preserve the area where they live, which is very beautiful. So we want to be a hope for initiative that preserve our flora and fauna. So this can also bring other opportunities for them, like tourism, right? Like people who can come and there's a lot of beautiful birds here. Like this is a perfect place for bird watching. So together with coffee farming, they can do other things while preserving the environment, while taking care of what they already have. And by being organic, they are already preserving this, right? What we want is to kind of reward this work that they're doing through coffee, like doing good through coffee, so they can get engaged in these other ways of preserving, get engaged on reforesting, on working in the tree nursery, bringing people that can come and visit them and actually engage into, like you say, like bird watching, maybe visit their farms, learn from what they do in coffee farming and all of this. So this will bring new incomes. This will value their work better. So again, it's a circle of, like, you know, when we talk about environment, we need to see this as a circle of doing several things that go together in order to create one thing, or one main goal.
Absolutely. Well, we're sort of getting to the end of our time, but we do have a few more questions. And one of the things I know I personally, as a coffee roaster, have grappled with, our business has grappled with, is how to authentically make sustainability a true foundation of our business versus just playing lip service to it as a marketing buzzword. And I've talked to a lot of people about this. And so I think I'd really love us to talk about that for a minute. How do you make sustainability a business model for your organization versus just a buzzword? And we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but Larissa, I'd really love your perspective on this. You've been doing this a long time in the corporate world, and I would love your perspective.
Well, from my perspective, the most important thing and the differentiator from only thinking or talking about sustainability versus actually implementing strategies is that the sustainability mindset starts from the top, which means that the leadership positions in every sector or company of any sizes need to be engaged and literally believe in sustainability. If the leadership positions take sustainability as part of the business model, they can provide the resources and let's say clean the way for the rest of the organization to materialize the objectives. Additionally, leadership positions need to be or need to have very clear goals for the long terms. Sustainability can be executed in 1 year and have outcomes on the same period. This is also important for all the investment required in the long term for the strategies. So basically, as an example, a couple of years ago, the NKG Board of Management initiated the creation of the Responsible Business Program in order to define the 4 NKG objectives of the areas in responsible conduct, traceable supply chains, improving farmers' livelihoods, and improving our environmental footprint, as well as commitments to meeting them. So like right now in general, if the leadership are authentic, their team will respond in kind. And to be honest, nowadays I feel like we are 2,600 members in the NKG family committed to growing this sustainable coffee industry. We are integrated because the leadership position is pulling us. So basically, that's what I think.
Thank you, Larissa. Candace, what are your thoughts on this?
Sorry, my mouth doesn't work that fast. I think if you're not, I think Larissa's absolutely right, without a doubt. If you are not, if the head of your organization, your company or whatever, the top tier management, the C-suite, if they're not involved or not interested or not passionate about sustainability being a feature of the business, it won't be, because every outcome will fail, because without a buy-in from management, it can't not. I think it's far easier to do what I'm doing, which is consider all these things as you build your company, than to implement them after the fact, especially if the way that you work is profitable. And that's the real battle with climate change. People talk to me a lot about sustainability, and I know very little, but they're like, well, what's the greatest thing you can do for sustainability in coffee? Like, what do you care about? Like climate? Like, because there won't be any coffee if we don't care about it. You can worry about water waste. You can worry about, farm gate prices versus like FO, but you can worry about all of that. But if the temperature goes up by like 3 or 4 degrees, we don't have coffee. Not the coffee that quote unquote we like, specialty coffee. So it's thinking with that kind of head that makes me consider, like, honestly, I went to climate marches when I was younger. I did a lot of kind of like, I guess, layperson activism work in the 90s when I was growing up. I had grown up, I'm not gonna lie. I was an adult in the 90s. But it always seemed exhausting, or it always seemed like too much, or it always seemed like something for down the road. And then I remember I think Time magazine had like the first body of land, a complete body of land was consumed by water. And I thought, wow, we're just chilling out here in the West doing absolutely nothing. And people's actual land masses are going to be underwater. And it's, if you're not thinking about it in that sort of, in those sort of terms, the urgency isn't there. It feels like it's just like work that we have to do. And yeah, they say, let's be sustainable and I'm going to use compostable straws. But the actual matter of the fact is that, like, our industry, it's imperative that we as an entire industry take climate change, take sustainability through, ecological, economical, however you want to look, which lens you want to look through, we have to take it seriously. And so I think that putting those programs in place are going to be less and less, there's going to be less and less resistance towards them. Larissa works for the Neumann Group. I'm working with NKG, the larger group, on a particular project. And I can tell you, I'm jealous of where she works because people listen. I didn't know if they did it before. I don't know if this is a new thing, but I'm actually in the room with the CEO having a chat who's listening to what we're saying. And it's the listening and understanding first, and then having a structure, not just like, oh, sustainability, but again, exactly as Larissa was saying, you have to have plans with observable, measurable metrics. Otherwise, what are you really doing? So how do you implement it into your business? I don't know, but it needs to get done. I don't know if you need to hire a professional, look at other businesses, talk to other businesses of your size or bigger or smaller, but kind of leaving it as a kind of greenwashing and saying lovely fancy terms on your bags and like however else you want to portray that you're doing good isn't going to actually help your industry so much as maybe overhauling your business practices.
I know a question. Oh, go ahead.
No, that was it.
No, I know a question recently that I asked a mentor of mine. I was feeling a little bit jaded at the time, and I asked, is it really possible to do good and make money at the same time? And so I actually wanted to bring this to the panel. How do you keep your organization profitable while still navigating and really prioritizing commitment to socially and environmentally sustainable practices? Emily, why don't you go first with this?
Yeah, I have so much to say on that topic. Oh my gosh. First of all, I have to say, I was a music teacher and an English major. It turns out I've got skill or abilities or whatever, but I've discovered those by tumbling into business. And so there have been a lot of hard lessons learned. And I absolutely, along with my life and business partner, Michael, entered the coffee industry thinking that if you made profit, you were the bad guy, which is such understandable from our background, but also a very limited perspective. Then acknowledging that we are working within a system called capitalism, which could be argued was set up specifically to grind people into grist and turn their labor into pocket filling money for very few people. So acknowledging that, I then think that we have to actually try to plot real profitability for our organizations, or else maybe we'd better go work for other people we align with and help them get where they want to go, because there aren't that many opportunities in this world to truly make the world a better place through the lens of business. And then one more piece there, which is I do think there is a point at which profit is obscene. So we have to have profit. I can tell you that my company is working very hard to increase our profitability right now. It's now one of our big goals. We're not trying to increase our profitability past a certain point, but we know, we look at the future, we can see where we need to be. And we need to be there so that we can be generous with everybody in our lives, business, personal, to be generous. With that said, I then think we have to ask, what value are we bringing to the table? Because there's an unlimited amount of resource available. It's all fiat money anyway. It's just fake. It's belief. We're trading this for products and services and a sense of belonging. And so as at Catalyst, we're having a lot of these questions precipitated by the strong increase in coffee prices. So we do kind of have a cost plus pricing model at our company that's also considering the value that we bring to the table. And so we're having to ask ourselves, since all of our grade 1 Ethiopian coffee is going up by $1 per pound, what other value are we bringing that isn't simply coffee quality, which we feel we're already doing as well as we possibly can, given our givens, and like the attempt to be good, reasonable, kind people who keep their promises, which we're already doing our very best at. So that question of value, I think, is the area of huge opportunity for any business, whether it's global or tiny or anywhere in between, because speaking now from a marketing perspective, price is just an indicator of value. And price is the direct input that results in profitability. Run your business well, but you can really only take away so much before you just take away the business. And so pricing is, I think, one of the key pieces that we need to address these days. Not just, oh my gosh, everything's expensive, so I have to raise my prices, which doesn't add value. But how can I bring you as my customer so much value that you feel you're on the winning edge of this, even though you're paying more to me than you would to other people? That's my take on this. That's how we can do good and also make money and have successful lives as individuals.
Just a quick possible response to this. Candace, how do you see this aligning with your business's new launch?
I mean, I'm running super pared down, no physical space, only me as an employee. And once that becomes untenable, I hope that I have a plan to scale in such a way. I mean, I really don't want a physical roastery for quite some time. I don't see the need for it. I don't think I want a retail space for quite some time. I don't see the need for it. It's not just personal that I don't want to run these things. Of course, I would run them if they made sense to the business. It's because I don't want that much of a footprint out there, especially in the beginning, until I can justify it. So for me, it's what I said before. It's like this concept is here in my head and it colors everything that I'm doing. And I'm doing what I am doing in order to be as sustainable as possible, in order to not put the amount of coffee companies that have risen in the pandemic, the amount of people out there doing things, that's great. And I don't think there's any dividing of the pie, but I do think there's more and more people putting particulates into the air, having pieces of equipment that they could possibly share, which is what I'm doing right now, and things like that. I need healthcare, so I'm paying for that. Other than that, everything is going into the business. And so I'm hoping that, as I said, every step that I take moving forward to grow this business is taken with a sense of intentionality that has that sustainability in all of its facets as the core kind of value. Will I express that to clients? I don't know. I get turned off when I see some of the heavy-handed things that are out there showing how wonderful a company is, because exactly as Emily says, this is capitalism, and capitalism is bullshit. Capitalism makes sure that a lot of people don't have very much and very few people have a lot more than they need. So my contribution to that, I want to be as minor as possible. And that's it.
Thanks, Candace. So we are running out of time, and I have so many questions I want to ask, but we're gonna make this the last question so we can open it up to all the awesome questions that I've seen coming through the chat, and maybe address some of those. And I want to pose this to all of the panelists. Relationships really make the world go round, and the people that we align ourselves with and the values that we have, I think, really just make everything that we do either successful or not successful. So a big part of our success in this industry, like I said, is based on those business partners that we align ourselves with. So keeping that in mind, what questions should someone in the green coffee industry ask of their partners when deciding on collaborations? Let's start with you, Larissa.
Okay, well, in my opinion, the first and most important thing is to focus on the income of coffee farmers in order to really create a transformational impact and enable them to enter pathways out of poverty. Another key factor is inclusive sustainability, as some farmers can be struggling to meet environmental criteria. So with an inclusive sustainability, farmers can have access to knowledge, improve and advance so that no one is left behind. This is where the true change starts, and thriving farming communities are the key for the long-term success of the green coffee industry in general. And once we have the impact on coffee farmers, I think that we can already talk or work with other policies like recycling, because in this stage, farmers have the potential or conditions to work in other policies or subjects. If farmers don't have a viable business, they won't be able to engage in other topics like gender inclusion, diversity, or so on. And regarding collaborations, when you are looking for partners, I highly advise to consider that the collaboration is projected in the long run, because as I mentioned before, social and economic transformation cannot be generated in the short term. So I think that's very key.
Absolutely. And Svetlana, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think, we're new in this. What we've been focused on last year was how we actually put our farmers into a new path where we can open new markets for them. And hopefully we found somebody who has aligned with our values, with the things that we want to do. Maybe it was by luck, or I don't know, by the business we're working with, because we are more an NGO than we're not a business. We're trying to push business for the farmers, but we're working with this young company called Conscious with Coffee, which is pretty much aligned with what we're doing, with what we're focused on within coffee farming and coffee exporting. So everything that we want to do has been, they were very open to talk with us, and they were very concerned also on how we can improve a farmers' life through their work, right? We're not aiming to give anything free to the farmers. We actually want that a company can empower them and what they do, and actually give them the opportunity to open their markets for them. And this is what happened last year. We had this company in the UK who had trust in us. By that, we were able to work on actually exporting the coffee. And so one of the things we will think about when choosing a company will be how much they can trust in us. Same as we as a organization trust in the farmers, how much the company can trust in because we care, knowing that we're going to do everything that we can, and we know to make these farmers actually have the product for this company. But trust was the key to work with them, and hopefully everything kind of went well. So far, this is the experience we had the past year working with the business. So I don't know, this year we're implementing new things. We're meeting other people interested in buying coffee from these farmers. We're trying that everything is actually fair, right? Like it's not just the word like a fair trade or fair payment. Like we actually ensure that this happens for the farmers, that we can talk, we can speak for the farmers and actually transmit what the farmers are concerned about, because it's not easy for them themselves to actually go into these things. So we do want for the farmers the companies can be fair with them, because we are also working hard on producing what the business want, which is quality coffee. We're really working hard. So we also want that the companies or the business can be really fair on whenever it comes to buy their product.
Thank you, Svetlana. And then Candace, if you would like to speak to this, and then Emily, and then we're going to get to the questions in the chat.
I have just had a brain. Can you read the question again?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not an auditory person, so I'm amazed that all of you have been able to speak so eloquently on this and articulately. So I said that a big part of our success in this industry is based on, the people that we align ourselves with and the businesses. So keeping that in mind, what questions should someone in the green coffee industry ask of their partners when deciding on collaborations? What metrics do you use in determining supply chain decisions?
Oh gosh, I'll be honest with you, I haven't quite got there yet, but the overarching thing is with me, be it business or personal, if your values don't align with mine, then I can't mess with you. You know what I mean? Like business wise or otherwise, if I am watching you underpay your warehouse staff, if I'm watching you squeeze as much profit as you can out of green coffee at a space and a point which feels super uncomfortable, if I'm watching you align yourself with people I know that aren't doing good, I'm not going to be doing business with you. What are the specific questions? I haven't even thought about that yet. Sorry, to be perfectly honest, like I'm not going to make it up. I haven't even got there yet, but I'm fortunate enough to have been in the industry for like 15 years, and I'm calling on all my contacts now. So I know that I will be looking to specific green coffee importers to get my coffee from them, because I know that they try to pay the most. I know that they are working with farmers in ways that aren't just like, give me some of your beans, but are actually working with producers in a more collaborative sense. And I also know people who just won't, and sorry, I'm going to swear, they won't bullshit me, because that's a lot of what business is. It's people telling you what you want to hear. I don't want to hear anything except what your truth is. And if I can trust you as a person, then I can probably do business with you. But am I willing to sacrifice any of my own principles? No, I'm going to be really poor. I'm just going to be real with people. I'm going to be poor for a while. That's okay with me. My poor is a lot richer than a lot of other people. So.
Right on, Candace. Emily, take us home.
Oh, I just want to say I am so honored to be a part of this panel with such fantastic Larissa, Svetlana, Candace, Ashley. Thank you so much. I'm really challenged and excited about this conversation. So I have to say, in my experience and observation, most metrics are either cherry-picked or faked. I am surprised always, although I shouldn't be, at this stage when I do the math and realize that most transparency reports are, to quote Candace, bullshit. And so at this stage, I have to say, what's the point in quoting metrics that simply prove, that none of us have to worry anymore? Because most of us are just looking for reassurance that we're doing the right thing. And then we can tell our customers we're doing the right thing. And then everybody makes money and goes home and sleeps at night. The coffee supply chain is not that simple at all. And I think too, in the specialty industry, we tend to have this perception that if we can find out the purchase prices of each handoff of the coffee, then we've done our due diligence. And if we can somehow prove that at different points in the handoff that those prices were higher than some arbitrary international standard, which is, usually commodity based, then we also have done our jobs. We're ignoring the fact that as a buyer, usually, let's be honest, at this stage in the industry, a white buyer, asking about private transactions like this, asking about what producers are making on a daily basis, asking about take-home pay. It's incredibly colonial. It is so messed up. The only way that I personally see that we can do this is if we also volunteer the same information. And so these days, when my wonderful roaster partners talk to me about transparency, we tend to have these conversations. Let's do this two ways. If you feel that you can be more confident in Catalyst as a supplier, if you know the FOB price that we paid and what our overhead is and what our profit margins are, frankly, we have nothing to hide. All of it's mostly legislated anyway. But what I would ask from you is the same thing. Will you also share the correlating data? What is your cost of goods? How much profit are you making per pound? And how do you pay your employees? Because I can tell you, I'm paying my employees far more than I was ever paid at any point in my career. And they have healthcare paid for. And they're amazing people who deserve even more than I can give them. And so we're going to keep working on that. But unless we can have this kind of mutual back and forth, then it is of no value. It's just to assuage our consciences. Also, as Candace said, aligning with long-term values and visions, I think, is one of the key pieces. And Larissa said that as well. what is the long-term vision for this partnership with the producer? If there's nothing there that's long-term, if it's just a buying and selling relationship with no value added, there's not that much point in assigning it value beyond simple transactions, which can be okay too, because it's business. That's what I have to say. I could talk for hours on that topic, but we have questions to answer.
Thank you so much, Emily. Well, as I've said, and we've already gone over, but it's been an amazing conversation. That's all the time we have for this panel discussion. I want to thank all of the panelists. I really, really appreciate you being here and participating in this. It was so incredibly inspiring for me as someone that's, constantly trying to improve, better myself, learn. I'm constantly learning, and I know a lot of the people we all should be learning all the time. So it was so insightful, and I really appreciate you sharing your professional experience around this. So we have just a few minutes to take questions for attendees in the chat. And if we run out of time, feel free to send us an email with any follow-up questions, comments you may have. And we look forward to announcing the topic of our next webinar that we will be having in June. So stay tuned to our social media. And so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the questions in the chat here. I saw so many of them as I was coming through. Let me go back here.
Whilst you're doing that, I'm just going to say, Emily, you're so right. One of the reasons I didn't work with a particular roaster is they gave me 2 of their products after I taught them, did the first kind of like initial teaching them about roasting. And they had 2 bags, same size, one a coffee, pretty expensive. I knew it was about $6 or $7 a pound. One was $1 to $2 a pound, low grade Ethiopian natural, both being sold for $20 a package, which I think at that point was 400 grams. I won't with someone who does that. To me, it's not right. But it's exactly what you're talking about. If we're expecting transparency for one half, then the other half has to meet the handshake and be just as transparent, I believe.
I mean, really, it's kind of like asking people what kind of toilet paper they use. It's so private. But we do it every day. Why? We feel entitled to this information. Come on.
So forgive me, there's been a lot of questions, and I'm scrolling through with my little fingers trying to get to all of them right now. And not having okay. So Sarah asks, I struggle with origin travel because it's a huge carbon suck and it can feel a little performative. What do the panelists think is the best way, as a US-based coffee person, to get and share authentic information without, oh gosh, I scrolled past it, without inserting myself into every storyline? Who would like to answer that?
If you haven't been, you should go to Origin. Someone who passed away recently, he was a mentor of mine in the UK, and I had the chance to do my Q license, or I had the chance to go to Origin. And he told me, go to Origin. I took the Q license route. It served me very well. I knew so little other than what I'd read in books or what people have told me or romanticized or shown pictures. I didn't know Origin until I started traveling. I don't think you need to go all the time. And if you're not a buyer, even if you are a buyer, I mean, maybe that's your jam, but I don't think you need to go all the time. But I do think that it's invaluable to see the entire supply chain that you're working with.
Go ahead.
Sarah, always such good questions and thoughts from you. I just have to say that it's a privilege to be able to travel. Let's acknowledge our privilege. Let's use it well. I'm so lucky. I grew up in Missouri in the middle of a farming community. And here I was at the age of 32, spending 3 weeks on coffee farms in Peru. We have to repay our privilege as best we can and try to make sure that we're not just going to be wined and dined, thinking about how people are impacted by our visits. Even, let's not expect it to be luxurious. Let's accept that origin travel, if it is luxurious, we're probably not seeing a true picture, and keep having these conversations. I would like to say, lean on your importer for all the information you need. But speaking as an importer, it is brutal to produce enough authentic, quote unquote, authentic content. So work in progress. Let's keep trying it out and figuring it out.
Thanks, guys. So I'm looking through the comments here. Andrew Bruton said, it's true that coffee farmers are also people with complex needs in very different situations from country to country. Their wider socioeconomic context, even the degree to which communities are either cohesive and tight-knit or suspicious of help, all of this needs to be a part of any business working in coffee. The focus can't just be on coffee. So that wasn't actually a question, but it was a great comment. And if you guys have questions, please send them through, because I'm seeing lots of comments, but not actual questions.
I'd be super curious to hear Larissa and Svetlana comment on that.
Yeah, please.
You mean on the last comment?
Yes. Well, or the former question from Sarah.
If you could repeat that for me, please.
I could go. It's about traveling to origin, but also trying to balance all the carbon footprint that leads to this. I will also want to be honest. I would go to origin, perhaps not doing so often, but I wouldn't chase that for anything. Like just going, let's say, East Africa, or going to Colombia, or going to Honduras, to Ocotepeque. I mean, it's a very fulfilling experience, and perhaps 1 or 2 times it could be, or it could help people to get to know each other and create a link. And after that, I mean, perhaps you can just communicate. But I really, really recommend to go to origin and being in coffee farms. I mean, not only to see the coffee farmers, but also to be within the nature. I mean, being in nature, it's really, really great, really amazing, and it can help you a lot. So, yeah.
Thanks, Larissa.
Yeah, I think it can be also very eye-opening, like going to origin, like actually not going with the purpose of seeing how bad this coffee farmings can be, like with this mindset, but actually go there and see that it's actually amazing. Like farms here are, if you come, are like mind-blowing. Like you'll find much more than coffee, but the valuable thing is coffee here is that coffee actually links these other things that are around, like all this nature, or the fauna and the flora, and and the culture. Peru, it's a multicultural country, and just within the country, if you visit different coffee farms in different regions, everything will look different. The richness of culture that you'll find here, it's amazing. And I think if you like go with that open mind to your region, visit, well, in this case, Peru, which is my country, and this region where we are working, it's absolutely beautiful, and it can tell you a lot of what actually coffee farming means here and in Peru, in Santa Teresa, where we are.
Absolutely. Svetlana, your farm was one of the very first farms I ever visited on my first trip to Origin, and it just had such a huge impact on, I just was like, you shared your culture with me, and I got to see the beauty and the reverence you have for the environment and how strong your passion was for helping the people and the women there, and it stuck with me, and I've just always wanted to try to stay on that trajectory. So there's another question we have here from in the Q&A, and forgive me, I was looking in the chat, not the Q&A. So this is from Lucia Bawat, and I'm sorry if I did not say that correctly. Do you think there are other ways of doing marketing not using storytelling?
I'd like to jump in with an opinion on that. And my opinion is no. I think marketing is storytelling. Everything we do is storytelling. I'm telling you a story right now. I'm sitting here with my daughter's picture behind me. I'm saying to you with this beautiful brick that like, I'm legit, I know what I'm doing. That's a story, it's marketing. So anything we do at all is a story, interpersonally or with our businesses. But I do think that the traditional concept of storytelling, as in blog posts, Instagram posts, and different methods of delivery, that is mutable and can be changed, and frankly becomes a lot of those methods become less effective as time goes on and those networks change. So yes, there are a lot of, I think, ways we can connect with buyers of our products, but I do think that ultimately the story is what will be the glue that holds together our relationships.
I agree. And you're right about there being so many different ways. There's obviously the obvious example is Ernest Hemingway's short story about baby shoes. And if you've never heard it, the entire story goes, baby shoes, period.
Unworn.
Yeah, and never worn or unused, or period. And that's the whole story. And that you can take a myriad of ways, and there are stories born in people's heads, but that is a story. It's a 5-word story. Then I walked into the new flagship Nespresso store when it was new in the UK. It was about, oh my God, this might be about 10 years ago now. I can't remember. You walk in and you're like, oh, Nespresso, blah, 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 we're specialty. Let me tell you how they're not just specialty, and some of the capsules did taste okay, but the storytelling was out of this world. You walk in and there's a digital screen, and the digital screen has moving animated images. And it took me as a coffee person, at least, I thought it was beautiful. There was like a flower, and then there was a vine, and I was like, oh wait, hold on. They're telling me the entire story of coffee from seed to cup in a 30-second digital display that looks beautiful, and you would have no idea. And yet every single coffee person walking in there goes, oh wait, that's seed to cup. And they did it amazingly well. And it actually was offensive to me because it was Nespresso. Sorry, Nespresso. But that did it so well. But I absolutely what Emily says, everything you see or do is telling you a story. The texture, the color of something, the font that they use, whomever is doing whatever product. Let me see a little beauty sachet. They're telling me they're really sexy, and they're very what's the word, minimalistic, which means they're better. And there's a lot being conveyed just by like the font and the color of this little packet of whatever nonsense I got. So everything is storytelling. There's nothing that's not storytelling. We lie to ourselves, that's a story. We tell someone the truth, that's a story. Everything is a story, and how we convey it is what's different.
Absolutely. Let's see, this is a great question. As a final user, and this is from Annalisa Corso, as a final user of the coffee industry, it is really hard for me to be able to contact the farmer. Have you any suggestions on how I can do it? Larissa, would you like to start?
Travel to origin. And get to know more farmers. I think I will suggest.
We are actually trying to make that possible, because all of the farmers are working in the Because We Care group. They can be seen through Because We Care for anybody who can contact them. I'm actually updating our website where people can actually talk to them, and we are teaching farmers how to use social media, and whatever we post they are aware of. I'm not really good at social media, so try to post as much as I can. But everything that we post, they see it, they know. Soon our website, like I say, is going to have these stories of them, ways on how they can connect with them, see the meetings that we have, the talks that we have, which is beautiful actually. Most of them speak Quechua only. For me, it's beautiful. So they can express themselves and don't feel bad about it. So yeah, I think this is possible, and also we're working this with the UK companies. So by putting some little information in the box on ways that the people can actually contact the farmers, it's possible. So it's happening soon, at least in our little plans and goals.
Thank you. Looking at some more here. We'll probably just do one or two more.
Hey, Ashley, I can help you out. There's a
Yeah,
question
thank you.
from-
I'm not seeing some.
Sorry, I've been posting them in the host and panelist chat, so they can get to you guys
Okay.
directly.
Yeah,
There's a
thanks.
question from Naomi here that says they really like they really value and appreciate this extensive conversation on sustainability from the perspective of equity, so necessary. With racial justice so tied to climate justice, how can storytelling help us mitigate the impending effects of climate crisis, especially on coffee producers?
Who'd like to take that one? How about you, Larissa? You look like you're about to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, and what we were mentioning, it's important. The storytelling is important to take decisions and to bring together all this industry. So I would say that the importance is to bring or create a link within the industry. We mentioned that this connection that can be created within farmers, let's say private companies, NGOs, financial institutions. So I think that's the most important part of the storytelling, and bring closer all the industry together. So that's what I was thinking. Sorry.
No, thank you for sharing. Does anyone else?
And scrolling, trying to find the question, and realized that we all had an awkward silence. Yeah, I think there is so much intersectionality here with racial justice, climate justice, and so much equity, so much of an equity question on every angle. And storytelling is the key. Storytelling is how we communicate the stuff that needs to get done and what has been done. I personally, as somebody who has spent most of her professional life writing about and photographing people's stories and helping them get a larger audience, I would really love to see us invest as an industry in just better storytelling, because it's very gatekept and we have very few avenues for people to get from one language to another, from one part of the world to another. And this is not a good answer in the sense that it's not actionable at this moment, but I just want to plant the seed that I see us having an incredible potential as an industry to be telling stories with each other in new ways. Maybe it's a platform that is maintained by representatives from every different coffee producing country, and everybody gets paid a certain amount for their contributions because we have some big donors. I don't know. Obviously, I'm talking about creating a whole nonprofit here, or maybe But what I'm saying is that we can do this. We can keep talking about this, and ultimately, it is our storytelling that will impact the way that our producer partners in every angle are impacted by climate and every other variable that impacts their sustainability. That is kind of a nonsense answer for you, but let's dream big.
I love it. What else do we have, Monsi? And I think this will be our last question.
Yeah, there was one earlier from Andrew, and what they were asking about was really just, a lot of this is to support producers and farmers, and I am definitely just rephrasing it. Sorry, Andrew. But a lot of these conversations we're having is to support and bring justice to like what the farmers and producers are working on. So how are they supposed to access this information when we don't always have access to them, or they don't always have access to these types of conversations? I just thought that was an interesting one. It was asked really early on. So what are the types of, I think, I guess how do farmers get to know about these organizations that are doing this work, or companies that are investing in this? Their values are similar. They're going to prioritize the farmers' perspectives. Like, how do we actually connect and link the people that want to do good with those that are doing that?
I think we need to acknowledge that there's a vested interest in keeping these individuals apart. It is destructive to the supply chain for the final user to talk to the initial person from a self-interest angle. So there are just endless obstacles to this outside of the logistical, language, and cultural barriers we already have. Many governments are doing a really good job of trying to help their their producers. What may be lacking, I think, is that there's a lot of independent effort that's being exerted that isn't actually making its way from one side to the other. And we all need to be trying to find ways to do a better job of making that happen.
Thanks, Emily. Well, everyone, I think we are about to hit the 2-hour mark, which I gave us, but I think we're at the tail end of this wonderful, beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for all the questions, the responses. I really, really appreciate all the work that my committee members have helped me put into this. And again, just to the panelists, thanks for taking the time out of your day to have this important conversation with us. And we will be having another webinar, and it will be in June. And we are currently in the works with the topic of that, so please stay tuned. And let's see, where's my slides? So thank you everyone for joining us. It was an honor hosting, and I'm going to sign off, and we will see you next time for our next speaker series. Just a quick note that US Women in Coffee was founded in 2019, and we are committed to supporting women coffee professionals by inspiring and empowering and connecting women through local and regional engagement. The U.S. Women in Coffee Association is a nonprofit 501c3 tax-exempt organization and the official U.S. chapter of the International Women's Coffee Alliance. And there is a survey that was put in the chat. So please fill that out. And thank you for your donation. We really appreciate it. Thanks again for bearing with my awkwardness here at the end and allowing me to be a part of this awesome conversation.
Such an honor to be here. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon, morning, evening.
Yes, wherever you are.
And just a shout out to thank Pacific Foods because of their sponsorship. We are able to pay all of our panelists, and that was really important to the U.S. Women in Coffee organization to not just host these types of panel discussions that are free and accessible, but also pay our speakers for their expertise and time, because nobody wants to do stuff for free, and they shouldn't. And women deserve to get paid for this. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Pacific Foods.
Thanks, Monsi.
Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.